Are you ready for the best Kansas City Chiefs insight? Welcome to the Chiefs Blitz Podcast, presented by Dave Purdy with Supreme Lending. For your mortgage solutions, call Dave today at 816-405-5831, 816-405-5831. After all, he's pretty good. Here's your Chiefs Blitz host, Nick Athan, with Lou Montagna, Andre Tillman, and Hence Talk.
Welcome to the next edition of Chiefs Blitz. I am your host, Nick Athan. I am one of the four guys in the bar. We're going solo today because we're going to talk to my good friend Eddie Kennison, former Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver. Before we get to Eddie, we got to pay some bills around here, Eddie. So first up, we want to talk about a couple of our sponsors. First, Dave Purdy with Supreme Lending. If you're looking for a mortgage, you're looking to refinance a house, whatever it might be, you want to pay down debt, give Dave a call at 816-405-5831. You can hit the QR code, and it'll go right to his computer. He'll be able to line you up and take an analysis of your current situation. Again, even though your home interest rate might be low, you've got 30% interest in credit cards. Let Dave take care of you. Reach him at 816-405-5831. And then if you're looking for a mortgage, that means you've got to be looking for a real estate advisor. And we've got our good friend, Eric Haynes. Eric's been a good friend for a long time. Huge Chiefs fan. Eddie Kennison fan. You can reach him at 816-729-3785. eSellsKC at gmail.com. Again, if you're looking to buy a house, sell a house in the Kansas City area, you got anybody, friends, family, Chiefs fans that are trying to relocate in or out of Kansas City, let Eric find a realtor in the local market. He'll take care of you. Give Eric a call at 816-729-3785. All right. All the business is done. And now we get to talk to my friend, Eddie Kennison. Eddie, how are you, buddy?
Nick, I am super fantastic, brother. Hope you're doing well this morning.
I can't complain at all. We're just doing our thing these days. We're starting this new Chiefs site about 3 months ago. We started the podcast video podcast. Remember the day when we had, the War Paint Illustrated podcast and Out of Bounds, and it was all audio. I didn't have to shave or shower. I could just do the show from wherever. Nowadays it's all video, man. But you look great, man. You haven't changed a bit. You got no gray, man. I'm jealous.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's hereditary. It's not by design. Like, my father is 76 years old and he has no grays whatsoever. Oh. But I think grays, in God's book, grays are wisdom, brother. And, obviously I need to go get some more wisdom so I can potentially get some grays.
My wife calls me the silver fox. So I guess that's a good thing, right?
That's a great thing, brother. There's a lot worse things that she can call you, but silver fox is really awesome.
Fortunately, this round I did it right. I'm pretty good there.
Good, man. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So, hey, it's great catching up. I mean, we've known each other a long time, and we go back 20 plus years when you were, coming on board with the Chiefs, and we started out just talking and conversing, and ended up doing a feature in War Paint Illustrated, which ended up being the longest column I think I've ever written in my entire life. And you did tell me it was the best column anybody had written about you. So I do take that to heart. So if people can't see, there we go. Right here, just proof. Guy, I even got you to sign it for me, which I really, really, really appreciated as well. But
wow.
You've had an interesting life, and you started your career, at LSU. I think you were looking at another school, right? Florida State.
Florida State. I actually committed to Florida State.
Yeah. So what changed your mind? I know it's not like the NIL days now, but any under the table deals or anything like that, or you just thought, LSU was the best place for you?
No, I tried to go back and get some NIL money when I made it back to LSU, but they said, no, you're too old, dude.
Yeah,
but,
you're too old.
The Florida State, story, how it happened is I actually committed to Florida State on Friday when I got there for my official visit. And on Saturday morning, I had a meeting with Bobby and with Coach Bowden, and he walked into his office and he said, "Mike, I'm sure glad that you're going to be a Seminole." And I looked up at him and I said, "Hey, coach, my name is not Mike, and I'm not going to be a Seminole anymore." And Nick, as long as you've been knowing me, I've been as upfront and honest as I could possibly be. And whether it was a human mistake or he didn't know or whatever the case may be, but after that meeting, I called my head coach, Rob Laverne at the time, and I said, we need to get in contact with Curly Hallman, who is the head coach here at LSU. And Curly came to my house on that following Tuesday, and that following week and that following Friday, I was on an official visit to LSU, and I committed to LSU after that weekend.
Wow, that's amazing. We got a little surprise for you. We're gonna take you back to the 90s. We got a little video of one of your greatest plays at LSU because I think people forget, you're a great wide receiver, but you were a terrific return man as well. And so we're going to roll tape, as they say.
He gets a good kick away.
Dante Hall here.
Yeah.
Fielded it and stepped to the end zone.
Mississippi State, 1994, brother.
Yeah.
He could go all the way.
Look at that. You had so much space. I probably could have run that once you hit the 50. I probably would have been all right. I would have been gassed for sure. But my goodness. And I mean, you had a terrific career at LSU. I know you're doing some stuff for LSU now. What specifically you're doing right now?
Yeah, so LSU brought me back almost 3 years ago, and I was the director of player development for the football team. And just last year, they asked me to move into the athletic department to work with LSU Sports Properties. And it's basically helping with corporate sponsorships and partnerships and sales of all of the assets that are here for LSU athletics and help bring in revenue for our athletic department. And they allowed me to shake hands and kiss babies and sell some things and go to various sports on campus, brother. I mean, still, I look back at my career, they had owners who paid me to play in the NFL, and that was fun. And I look back and I look at it now, and, LSU is paying me to come back and be around LSU athletics. What's greater than that, man? And I get to raise my 10-year-old son in this environment. So, Nick, when I tell you, it's been fantastic, brother.
Well, good for you. You got a great family, that's for sure. And when you left LSU, you got drafted by the then St. Louis Rams. A high draft pick, first round pick. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but just I remember you talked about this before. But for people that haven't heard the story, I mean, being a first round pick back then it was a little different. It's not like the first round picks today. When you reach a certain number, I think it was you were number 10.
I was the first round 18th pick.
18th pick.
Yeah.
So, back then, first round picks were expected to be an impact player, no matter if you were 1 through 32. Now there's a little bit more gray area, because the draft is completely different. These athletes are completely different. But just talk about the pressure, being a top pick and going to a team like the Rams, who was at that point, I think, still trying to figure out who they were.
Right. And at the time, Nick, and still to this day in my current life, I don't in particularly have pressure because I enjoyed the game so much. I played the game since I was 7 years old. And the only thing that really changed for me in being drafted was my trajectory in my family. Now that I was, we didn't have NIL when I was at LSU, but it gave me the opportunity to, make financial changes in my family situation. And that's what it did. And it allowed me just to continue playing a sport that I played for so long and loved it. It's just at that time, now they're paying me to play the sport. And on top of that, I got to learn the business at the NFL level and really dive into what it was and how significant it could be, not only while I was playing for 13 seasons, but for my afterlife in football. So there was really no pressure. I was just having fun like I was a kid in a candy store, Nick. That's it.
Yeah. Well, you did bounce around a couple of teams, and you ended up, I think you had a choice to come between Denver and Kansas City. You chose to go play for the Broncos. And then you had some family stuff come up, and the Broncos weren't very supportive. I think that's the kindest way that I could possibly put it.
Right.
and you took some time off, and then you get a phone call from Dick Vermeil and says, "Hey, we need you in Kansas City." And he did something rare. He goes, "You take as much time as you need to decide if you want to come." And I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, and and Dick Vermeil and I, we still talk 2 or 3 times a month to this day. And he is the epitome of a family man, a father figure, a coach, a husband, a mentor. I can go on and on about who he has meant not only to my life, but even to, my now ex-wife and our kids. And we still have these conversations about then and now and life. And he's been that, brother. And I love him dearly, dearly for the man that he was in my life then and continue to be to this day.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. He was, that was kind of the beginning of my covering the Chiefs, was when Dick Vermeil came along. And there was a time when I was doing a local TV show on 38th The Sports Spot. And I think you guys had played Buffalo, and you couldn't get the ball past the 40-yard line. And it was just one of those games. And I was just like, why is he still coaching? I just went off. It was just one of those personal losses. So the next day I see him in the barrels of Arrowhead, and he just, I see him and I go, oh my God, I'm done. I'm doomed. I am absolutely doomed. He's going to throw me out. He's going to call security. And he looks at me and he goes, Nick, what were you saying? What were you thinking? And I said, Coach, I am so sorry. I said, at the heart of all this, I'm just a fan. The whole thing was starting my career in writing and war paint and all that time. I was just a fan. I mean, I just said this to you 1,000 times. And he goes, I just let the fan out of me because it's okay. We didn't play very well. And it just, and I've talked to him a few times over the years as well. And he was just, I don't think people understood, you talk about his loyal, how loyal he was, how caring he was, how emotional he was. Those aren't bad traits.
Mm-hmm.
You see coaches on the sidelines now, or coaches, in some of these films that you see, and they're just, there's no expression there. And you got to play the game with passion. And I think that's the greatest gift I think he gave to all of his players in the 3 teams that he coached in the NFL.
Yeah, there's no question, man. And, when you can win over a locker room, not just as players, but, understanding that each individual person or man has their own characteristics and their own responsibilities outside of the locker room. And when you can address, 53 to 62 guys in the locker room, you treat them, you treat them different, but you love them the same. Those guys, they will knock down walls for you, man. And he absolutely figured out how to do that and touch each individual person in their own space. And he continues to do that to this day. And, he just, helps you, understand that life, yes, it's serious, but, let's love on yourself. Let's love on each other. But more importantly, understand what that individual person is going through. Now help them strive to move forward and be better.
Yeah, I mean, he did a terrific job in Kansas City, and you guys came close, man. That Colts game, that's still one that just haunts me to this day. And
well, Nick, we're gonna have to get you some therapy, brother, so you can get over it.
I know, man. I try to get past some of this stuff, but there's like 3 or 4 months. I remember, I mean, I suffered 50 years between Super Bowls. So, that's a long time for someone to be a fan of something and just go, are they ever going to win anything? And of course, Patrick Mahomes comes, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But, so, I mean, obviously your time in Kansas City, you were productive, you were fast, you understood the offense. I know it took you a half a year to kind of get adjusted. And then you and Trent Green formed a bond that was just absolutely, it's on parallel with any quarterback, wide receiver in Kansas City. Just talk about playing with Trent.
Yeah. One of my first interactions with Trent, I think it was after a couple of weeks or something, I had a few plays that Al Saunders had drew up for me just because I got there, late in 2001. And there was a story that someone wrote about me that I was upset at Trent because he was not throwing me the ball early in my career. And it was just one of those fabricated stories that someone was trying to, muster up for whatever. And Trent heard the story or read it before I was able to get to it. And he called me up and he said, "Hey man, I don't know what's going on or how you feel, but he says, you're my guy." And he said, if we can build this, we can have something special. And I had never had that type of conversation from a new quarterback, and someone caring and knowing about the situation that I had come from to where I was. And I knew at that point in time that I would do everything in my power as a wide receiver to know the game, to learn the offense, because I wanted Trent Green to be successful at his role. So that means I had to go and dive into what I needed to dive into. And I said I would do my best never to let that guy down. And hopefully he's been pretty acceptable and understanding of that role. And hopefully he has some great success in it.
Yeah, you know what I want to touch on, and what I think is fascinating is the wide receiver position when you played compared to today. You know, the quarterbacks are a little bit different. They're a lot more mobile. You know, they have to throw on the run, partially because sometimes these offensive lines aren't great. You guys had a killer offensive line. I mean, you had the best offensive line in franchise history. I mean, even better than the Super Bowl IV team. But, you know, when you have Shields and Rofe and Wegman and Willie Rofe and
Brian Waters
and Waters and Tate. I mean, Willie Rofe, to me, my favorite story is Willie is, you know, you played with him. The guy could barely move in the locker room. He could barely move after a game or before a game. And I remember one time we counted, like it took almost 2 minutes from where you guys did the massage therapy just to get to the locker. And I kept asking Herm I asked Herm at the time too. I'm like, how does he play? Most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That on game day, he would just maul people. It wasn't one guy he'd go after the next guy in line. And that
That's
offensive line, though, just talk about that era of football kind of compared to today.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I don't know a whole lot about, you know, how they run offenses or defenses today. I can see it. But back then, you know, we were a group of guys that loved being around each other. You know, I'm not sure how they do it in the locker room now, but you know, we had a ping pong table and a pool table and a card table in the middle of the locker room. And, you know, after practice, no one would go home. We would sit there and we share meals and stories. And on Thursday nights, I remember every Thursday night we would go somewhere and eat dinner as a team or as a wide receiver group or DB group or all together. And we invited our wives and the kids, so everyone got together and they knew each other. And it was just a true family affair, you know, back in those days. And, you know, a lot of those guys I still am in contact with to this day, you know, speaking on families and our times back in our playing days. I'm not sure if they do that today. I hope they do, because it for me personally, it built everlasting friendships and family for the rest of my life. I know I can call on a lot of guys to this day and check on them and see how they're doing, brother. It was beautiful back then.
Yeah, that's a beauty. And, you know, you've always been a man of faith, and you've also, you know, you've been a family man, and, you know, you've got these great kids. You and your ex-wife, you know, still communicate, still work together, you know, not something that a lot of marriages do these days, but you've kind of found that winning formula, because, you know, the second I met you in Shemika, it was like you guys, you know, the foundation was there, the love was there, the faith was there.
Yeah.
And it's just good to see that, you know, as life changes for all of us, you know, that we can still be doing the right things for our family and for our kids.
No question. And the one true thing that, well, there's a few true things, but the most important thing is understanding as a man of God that even though things didn't work out between Shemika and I, marriage-wise, we do have 3 sons. And more importantly, Shemika is a child of God. That's God's daughter. And who am I to treat her anything less than a child of God? I don't want anything to block my blessings for what I have. So it is my godly duty to make sure that she is always taken care of as God's child. And also that's my son's mother, that my sons never, ever see me do anything to misinterpret or miss anything to treat their mother in any other way other than the love and respect that she absolutely deserves. So my boys deserve to see that, and God deserves to see me treating her in that manner.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's also fitting that we're calling you or talking the week that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to travel to Green Bay to play the Packers, because if I'm not mistaken, this is where the therapy works,
Right.
The Chiefs visited Lambeau Field, you and Trent Green, Tony Gonzalez, and you guys were down in the fourth quarter, you go into overtime. And to me, it's the catch and the play of your career in Kansas City, because I remember watching it in my kitchen and with my mother, and Trent throws that pass in overtime, and I'm thinking, he's going to throw it to Eddie. And you were just wide open. You torched the guy. And that was just that to me, and you've had a lot of great highlights, but to me, that was the play of your career.
Oh, brother. And, if you give me, a few seconds, I'll kind of break down, we were going into the fourth quarter, and it's crazy because I remember this like it was yesterday. Going into the fourth quarter, I think we were down 17 points, and Brett Favre throws his first interception to Jerome Woods. Jerome returns it for a touchdown, and it just kind of went downhill for the Packers at that point in time. And in overtime, Green Bay wins the toss, and the very first play, Amon Green fumbles the ball. Mike Maslowski recovers the fumble. The very next play, Dick Vermeil and Al Saunders, Dick was like, go for it. Let's just end it right now. And Al called it. 56 yards later, brother, we're in the end zone, and we went in overtime. And if you can remember, we went 9-0. We were 9-0 after that touchdown.
Yeah, I do remember. I mean, it was amazing. And you mentioned another guy, Al Saunders. I mean, my goodness, Al. When I met Al for the first time, it was 3.5 hours I sat in his office, and he would not let me interview until I understood the difference between the X and the O's and which wide receiver position. And he literally would call plays, and he made me draw them up on the chalk on that big whiteboard that he had. And I would have to put, the X and the Y. And again, this is all foreign to me. I'm not an X's and O's guys. I mean, I wanted to know about his life and his career. So like 2 hours or 2.5 hours, we went through the playbook. That playbook, my God, I don't know how you assimilated it. I mean, it literally was like that thick.
That's right.
And, so he was like, well, okay, you got to learn this. And then we did this interview, and it was absolutely amazing. But man, oh man, that guy understood offense. And he was also one of the nicest human beings, that I've ever met.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was just part of who Dick Vermeil was in hiring the staff of guys that were like-minded like him. And Al Saunders was one of those guys, his son, Bobby Saunders. I mean, those guys, Dick Vermeil did a great job in his hires over the course of the years, but in particularly with our Kansas City Chiefs in the early 2000s, brother. Phenomenal human beings.
Yeah. So as we fast forward, obviously, you're part of the Chiefs family, you're the community, you go back to Kansas City. I'm sure you hang out with the alumni. You've been able to witness the Patrick Mahomes era in Kansas City from a former player. Not the fact that I'm going to say you probably would like to have played with Patrick. That would have been pretty fun, I'm sure. But just the overall just enjoyment that you get as a Chiefs alum and a former player to watch Mahomes and Andy Reid and what they're accomplishing today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, Patrick for sure. But I'm more in tune to a guy who continues to represent my old number, 87, and that's Travis Kelce. I love seeing that brother perform. I love seeing Patrick perform. I love seeing the entire Chiefs organization perform. But I'm a little biased to 87, brother. And I tell you what, he has done a number in the NFL career has been a great tight end, and arguably probably in the top 5 greatest tight ends ever in the National Football League. But I tell you what, it would have been an absolute pleasure to play with Travis. I would have probably wore number 2 or number 85 or something, just to let him have the number 87. But to be able to run in that offense that they're running today, that would be so much fun, brother.
Yeah,
I think if I would have had an offense like that when I was at LSU, I probably would have been the first pick in the draft.
you probably would have, and you wouldn't have probably gone to the Rams. I don't know who had the first pick this year, but it's interesting because you've got, you look at the history of the Chiefs, and to me, Otis Taylor still, no offense, greatest wide receiver I've ever seen play. Just because that was one of my heroes growing up.
Sure.
As a kid, he was one of those guys that, he changed the position, I think, in the NFL. You start seeing taller guys and more physical guys, more guys with speed, but he just had such grace. But when you look at the history again of the wide receiver position, we touched on it a little bit, but the evolution, now you've got tall guys, you got short guys, you got guys that don't have speed, you got possession receivers. And, you take a look at the Chiefs right now and kind of still trying to find their way offensively with all their young wide receivers. Mm-hmm. I don't think that people really understand how difficult it is when you have got unknowns, or you've got different sizes, or you've got defenses that are constantly changing, how difficult it is to play the game back then and even today at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, as a wide receiver or any position, but we're talking about wide receivers, you have to understand the game. When you go in and your playbook, you were talking about how our playbook was super thick. The concept of the offense is what you really have to understand. And when you understand the concept of why the play is being called for a particular down and distance, and then what your assignments are, then the machine runs better. But if you don't understand the concept of why the play is being called against a particular defense and the down and distance, you're totally doing yourself a disservice, because you're at the mercy of the defense at that point. But if you understand that concept, you give yourself a way better chance of being successful at the wide receiver level. Don't take anything for granted. I don't care if you're playing, a high school team. You go in, you get your film study in, you study your plays of the week. You may know them, but study them, write them down. Just that constant being a pro. You can say, yeah, I know the offense already, but do you really know it? And are you really spending time in it to understand that concept? I don't care if you're young or if you're Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes. Sit down, understand the concept of it, and you give yourself a better chance to be successful.
Yeah, and it's a difficult task. You've got, you guys had I know you don't like the word pressure, but you guys, came in a time when the expectations were rising again. Mm-hmm. The Chiefs were kind of in a lull, before Dick Vermeil arrived. They've had some missed opportunities. And you guys were kind of in this, and then all of a sudden it was an upswing, kind of like what happened when Marty got there. But now the expectations in the NFL are so much different, regardless of position, that every snap counts now. Every snap may not have counted before, but nowadays with the way it's being officiated, where they're trying to protect the players, and you've done some coaching. I know you've coached some at LSU. I think you did some coaching with the Chiefs, kind of like as an intern.
Right.
So when you look at it from your coach's eye, what do you see? What do you think would make the game better? What do you think would have made the game better back then? I mean, just from your coach's eye.
Yeah. So what the game evolves, from the 1960s to the early 2000s to current day. It evolved. It got better over those times. When we played in the early 2000s, it was better than it was in the 1960s. And now the game has evolved in such a way where the athletes they're better conditioned. they have better nutrition things that are going on. They have, better food to eat. There are better other resources for those guys to be able to perform at a high level. They're faster. I mean, look at Tyreek Hill. Good night. He made, that guy's unbelievable. So a lot of things, social media wise, so a lot of things have played a factor in, the way the game is played and how fans view it and how coaches and everyone else view the game. That really is the change in it. The field hadn't changed, from sideline to sideline, goal line to goal line. That hadn't changed. The concept of the game hadn't changed. Plays have changed. Wording has changed. And that's about it. And, you still have to go in and you have to know your playbook. You have to know your plays. You still have to go work out. You still have to take care of your body. You still have to get massages and go see the chiropractor, all of those things to get back in line to from Sunday to Sunday. And you have, 5 days, maybe 6 days to get yourself together. And but that's about it.
Yeah. Do you want to coach again?
I would love to get into coaching again, just not right now. Nick, I'm raising my 10-year-old son, brother, and I know coaching takes a lot of time. And, one day, if it allows me to get back into it, I will. But Griffin's going to potentially have to be in college, or there's going to have to be an opportunity that comes up that allows me to still be dad and coach, but it has to be pretty doggone good.
Maybe he goes and plays for my beloved Kansas Jayhawks, and you can coach over at the Chiefs. You'll only be about 45 minutes away. It might be a really good scenario. Kansas is pretty good now.
Yeah, so they're not bad.
They're not bad. They're not bad at all. But obviously, you've had an amazing career. You do things right. I will never forget when you and I did that interview for Warpaint Illustrated. I said, I know you took a lot of guys under your wings. I know you talked to a lot of guys. I don't know if you remember what you told me or not, but I said, what's the one thing you tell young players, about the jump from college to pro?
Oh, crud. I don't remember what I told you.
You said, watch your money. Because I will guess that you're frugal, based on our previous conversations, that you're not a big high spender. And I know back then we had that conversation. I thought I had it I reread the article today. I thought, I know there was a specific player that you were talking to that was just doing some crazy stuff with his money, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of. I mean, I've got too many stories, and you probably have witnessed it more so. But you mentioned social media. You mentioned the people that want to be around these athletes, and how back in the day with you and me, I mean, I could call you on the phone and you would answer, or we could sit down in the locker room or go up in one of the suites and just talk life, which you did with me multiple times, including one time when I was really down in the dumps. You picked me up, and I will never forget that. But today it's just not like that. You can't have relationships with the players from a perspective. I mean, the inner circles are so small now. Back then, I mean, if we ran into in the streets or at a restaurant, it was just, hey, come on over, sit down and chat for a minute. I mean, it ain't like that anymore. And I don't think people appreciate what it was like when I was covering the Chiefs and you were there, how just free and open it was. You mentioned the ping pong and the pool table, the Thursday night meals. I mean, I participated in a few of those things just as guests, just as a guest and not really as a reporter, and I'm just a kid in a candy store. But you were lucky. You had that interactivity with a lot of fans. You did a radio show, so it was a lot different back then.
Yeah, it was. And I believe that's one of the major components that's missing is the personal pieces, like actually sitting down and having a conversation with someone else. And I'm sure a lot of those guys do, but the computers that we have in our hands that's readily accessible for all of the other outlets, and I believe that the more that this continues to happen, the more disconnected that a lot of people become personally. And I just think we just need to have more conversations like this where, we continue being personable, because for me, I need a touch. I need a hug. I need a conversation between, me and Nick and whoever else the conversation may come from. Yes, social media is good. It helps in a lot of aspects of life, but that personal touch, that personal feel, that bonding time together where I put my phone down and have a conversation, brother, I need that. And I believe that's a major component of what's missing today.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And, now we're in a different media environment. So last question for you. Outside of the Packers game, best moment, most valued lesson learned in your time in Kansas City, on or off the field?
Oh, wow. A lot of people don't know this, but when I first, and this is an off the field, when everything happened in Denver and I finally agreed to sign with the Chiefs, at that point in time, I had not met another owner of the other 4 teams that I had played for. Mm-hmm. And when I arrived in Kansas City, Lamar Hunt greeted me at the door with a handshake. And he said, "Eddie, welcome to the family. We are so happy to have you here and as a part of our Chiefs family." And shortly after that, he gave me a handwritten letter thanking me again and welcoming me and my family to Kansas City. And I knew at that point in time, I was in a special place. I was in the right place, and my family was moving to the right place.
Yeah, Lamar was famous for those handwritten letters. I mean, I got a few letters from Carl Peterson there. They weren't always so great, but my dad and him were close friends, and growing up, he did some work when the Chiefs moved from Municipal to Arrowhead. They did some work together, and I remember meeting meeting Lamar about the summer before the Chiefs had won Super Bowl IV in a crowd of people. I mean, it was like at a picnic, and my dad knew him, and he's not going to remember who I am. And so when the Chiefs won Super Bowl IV and they came back on the at Municipal Airport, and I'm on my dad's shoulder, and Lamar comes up to me, high fives me, goes, "That was a good game, Nick, wasn't it?" I'm like, how does he remember? He just, everybody was a family. I remember as a reporter, we were covering the draft one year, and there's this guy on the field, and it's Lamar Hunt, and he's handwriting notes about all the sponsors that are lined up on the sides there, because, and we asked him afterwards, "What were you doing down there?" He goes, "Well, I just wanted to make sure that I could send a letter to each of the sponsors and thank them personally." Mm-hmm. The draft is going on, and he's on the field, taking that next approach, like, okay, I want to make sure, I take care of everybody. But he has done what he did for the AFL days. And, you're not the only person I've heard stories like that from. Mm-hmm. He just was that. And, God love Clark Hunt for having the confidence to take on, Mr. AFL, the founder, and to deliver another championship era like his father did. That's mighty impressive as well,
brother. And that's a direct reflection of Lamar, and the Hunt family, and all of the kids. I've had the opportunity to spend time and meet each one of the children, and Clark is absolutely doing a fantastic job of being the face of the Chiefs organization, following his father's footsteps. I could not be more proud of a organization and a family in the things that they've done, not only for my career, but for everyone who's gone through that organization and had life-changing, great experiences. Mm-hmm. Couldn't ask for anything better in an ownership.
Well, it's a great organization. They stood they stood time. They reinvented themselves. You're such a huge part of the Chiefs' history and the success of the organization. Eddie, I can't thank you from the bottom of my soul and my heart for joining me today. You are our very first one-on-one with a player as we started this Chiefs Blitz podcast. So I couldn't think of anybody better. I appreciate your time. I love you. And let's catch up, stay in touch, and hopefully we can see each other in a game soon.
You got it, brother. Nick, I absolutely appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me on. I love you as well, man. I love you with the love of Christ, brother. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And all of your family and friends that are watching and that will see this, man, you guys have a Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year. And how about your sponsors? How about Dave and Eric for standing in the gap, brother, and helping you out and being sponsors for your show, brother? Nothing better than that.
Nothing better than that. Dave Purdy and Eric Haynes, called me up and said, "Hey, what can I do to help?" And they're providing some sponsorships, allow us to do a few things and move forward with. You know me, man. I did Warpaint Illustrated for 13 years, and I loved every second of it. And when I retired, I thought, man, I miss it too much. So moving back to the Midwest, I said, let's start it up again. And we'd love to have you on again. If you feel like you ever want to be a contributor on a more permanent basis, man, you're all in, man. Just let me know.
Well, I appreciate it, Nick. Hey, you never know what can happen, brother. I love doing these things as well.
All right, buddy. All right, that's Eddie Kennison, former Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, my good friend, working currently with LSU. Eddie, again, thank you very much. Want to reach back out to our sponsors, Dave Purdy, Supreme Lending. If you're looking for a mortgage, give them a call at 816-405-5831. If you're looking for a realtor, real estate to get a house, give Eric Haynes a call at 816-729-3785. We'll be back on Friday with the gang. We'll preview the Chiefs and the Packers. Eddie, again, thank you very much. Love you, brother.
Love you as well, brother. Have a great day.
All right, take care.